Hi chickens, this is going to be a massive housework ramble. I don't know how much I'm going to get done in the course of this housework ramble, but it's not going to be everything that I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at an almost violently big bag of paperwork that needs to be sorted through. There's stationery in there, there's stuff that needs to be filed, there's bits and pieces that have just been paper that I've picked up and put in this bag over the course of a couple of months and thought I will sort that bag out later, and the time has come. And the other thing I'm looking at is a massive bag of clean washing. Some of it is just little accessories like scarves and stuff like that that need to be put with my accessories in the wardrobe. I know some of it is summer clothing that needs to go in the case under my bed because I never keep my summer and winter clothing all mishmashed together. I don't have the room in my flat, so when summer's over I tend to put my summer stuff away under the bed, and I know that I've definitely missed some bits and pieces. So there's summer stuff in there, there's all kinds of shit in there, so I need to sort out my life basically, and I'm taking you guys with me. Okay, so I'm going to make a solid attempt to get through as much of this stuff as possible, and some of it I know I'm giving away to charity, some of it I know will go to friends, so I'm not going to do too much talking about what's going on with the actual clothes, but just to let you know I'm definitely not giving this away because oh my goddess, it's fucking legendary. And then after this is done I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to sweat it out a little bit, because what I'm talking about in this particular housework ramble is definitely, let's say, of the more touchy end of things for me, and I don't really believe in ranting on my channel. I'm not a rant kind of woman, so I'm not going to be ranting, and I'm not going to say that it is a rant, but I definitely might get into animated territory, let's just say. The wind is howling down my street right now, guys. I really hope it's not too much of a distraction. There is nothing I can do about it. I live literally right by the seafront. Just a reminder before I get into this topic, if you have any housework that you need to do, any laundry you need to fold, any sewing you need to do, if you need to take me to the kitchen and plug me into some speakers or get your headphones in and put your phone in your pocket, whatever you got to do, honey bunnies, definitely come along with me on this adventure so we can get our housework done together. I know that lots of people do their housework while watching me do my housework rambles, and I think that is a very fine idea. So I want to talk today a little bit about the limitations of my work. I want to talk about some feelings that I have had over time about the dangers of producing the kind of stuff that I produce for YouTube and putting myself in the kind of position that I've put myself in. But I also want to talk about personal accountability. I want to talk about how I am not the be-all and end-all. I don't have all of the answers. I have never claimed to have all of the answers. I do not want to be seen as somebody that has all the answers. Believe it or not, somebody can put 400 odd videos up online without wanting to be seen as the Messiah or as any kind of guru. And I don't want to be seen in those terms. I do not want to be seen in that kind of context. And what... Wow. I don't even know if that showed up on the microphone, but that is some howling wind. I really hope my building stays up. Fuck. Sorry, the point I was making was that, believe it or not, you can put hundreds of video resources up online without wanting to be seen as this guru that knows everything and is about to tell you about yourself and tell you the way and give you this very clear direction and clear instruction that is good for everyone and that everyone should follow. There are people out there who want to adopt that kind of position online and in the spiritual community. I can assure you that I'm not one of them. And you can tell that, or I hope most people can tell that anyway, from what I'm doing with my language when I'm talking in my videos. I am pretty much consistently peppering my language with healthy doses of this might not be right for you, and you need to lean into whether or not this is the advice to take, and, you know, explore freely, make up your own mind, you know, search your heart, listen to your intuition, ... This might not be right for you, this might not be right for you. I feel like there's caveat after caveat in my work, but I also feel like those caveats sometimes just don't do the trick. Sometimes I feel like people are seeing my stuff as something that is considered to be complete in terms of instruction to people, and it's supposed to be this neat little thing that you're supposed to follow, and then, you know, everything will be okay in your life. I don't believe I have all the answers, and I want to go in to this topic a little bit in this housework ramble because I want to make it very clear for anyone that it's obviously not clear for, and I want to make sure that I'm understood. First of all, when it comes to the advice videos that I put out there on YouTube, any videos where I'm offering inspiration, where I'm offering tips and tricks, where I'm talking about what I did in my own journey, or, you know, what might be useful for people in different circumstances, it is all general. None of it can be specific because I'm simply not talking to any one person specifically. So the advice is always general. And I definitely feel like 9 times out of 10, that is absolutely appreciated. And I don't think I have a massive issue in my audience with people taking any advice that I give as gospel or assuming that I'm trying to say that it's right for everybody's circumstances. I feel like the majority of the people that watch my stuff, whether they watch every video, whether they come and go, or whether they just drop by, subscribe and quickly unsubscribe because I'm not flicking their switch, I think most people understand that the advice that I'm giving is limited. It is general for one. It is intended to be a buffet selection of different things, and it is not intended to speak specifically to you as an individual, because you know what? I don't know you as an individual. I do not know what you have been through. I'm not a member of your friendship group. Well, there might be a couple of friends watching. Hello, if you're watching. You know, so I cannot presume to know what the specifics of your situation are, nor would I ever want to presume to know that, okay? So I feel like that's where sometimes people do get a little bit confused, or I feel as though there is confusion around that, and sometimes every so often a small cross section of people who watch my videos forget that, and that is probably one of the only things about producing the kind of content that I produce that causes me stress. I'm not blaming any particular person. I'm not saying if you leave me a comment like this, or if you talk in the kind of way that I'm going to be describing in this video, then you are a cause of stress to me as an individual. But what I am saying is that you are probably imbibing my content in a way that I would not describe as helpful, and I would not describe it as suitable for the kind of content that I put out. I've had this cardigan for so long. It's so cute. It's really well made, but I just don't think I want it anymore. It's so lovely though. It is really well made. I think I'm going to put that on the give to charity pile. By the way, guys, I don't often give my clothes away. I'm not like a fast fashion addict that needs to give stuff to charity every 5 minutes. I'm literally really having a sort through now at the end of summer and just thinking about what I want and what I don't want anymore. I will never give this away because this pattern is to die. Oh my goddess. Every time I put out an advice video, I am putting out a series of different nuggets of information, a series of different tips and suggestions. I may speak to different things as well. So for instance, this is just an example. In my video about self-harm and information for self-harmers and also the loved ones of self-harmers, obviously there was a range of different advice in there. Some of it was geared towards those who actually engage in self-harm. Some of it was geared towards those who are wanting to help somebody who's engaging in self-harm, and within that spectrum as well there were a number of different pieces of advice that I offered. Obviously not every single piece is going to be suitable for every single individual. Obviously there's going to be situations where there's going to be some pieces of advice that are really going to hit home and are really going to be useful. There's going to be other pieces of advice that you've either used or aren't relevant to your situation, or that you know when you check in with yourself are absolutely wrong for your situation. And that's really where the personal accountability thing has to come in. There is no way that I can take personal accountability for individuals who are not me. Other people have to take that accountability, right? Other people have to be responsible for sifting through anything in any advice video, whether it's me making it or someone else making it, and take what resonates and take what is appropriate for them as individuals. Okay. So the next thing I want to say is that in my work, you're going to find a lot of aphorisms, a lot of pithy, punchy, general truths, basically. And those kinds of things are peppered throughout my work. You're also going to find lots of spiritual and psychological principles. I'm going to mention lots of things that have been established in the psychological community, or different sort of spiritual sayings that we sort of have generally, through observation, recognised are true. So some stuff is going to come from studies that I've read or books that I've read. Some stuff, it still comes from books I've read or teachings I've picked up, but they're really just spiritual sayings. They are evident spiritual truths that we've all kind of agreed upon, you know. you know, stuff to do with love and inner peace and things like that. Some of my work contains what you could even consider really to be truisms and cliches. There's a lot of that stuff in my work, you know. Sometimes somebody might watch a video of mine and think, well, that's a fucking cliche, or that's been said 1,000,001 times before. But I'm one of those people that believes that just because something has been widely established and is said often doesn't mean that it can't still be helpful for somebody who is feeling lost and needs to get found. So a lot of the stuff that could be considered a truism, which is something that is so self-evident that it might as well not even be mentioned, could be the guiding light. It could be an incredible important principle for someone in that moment who feels lost, right? So that, you know, you could say that some of my work is trite or corny or overdone, and you know what, that's okay, that's fine. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there are lots of aphorisms, lots of sayings, lots of truisms, lots of bits and pieces that are generally considered to be observed and be true and be helpful on some level, or to be agreed upon widely. But when you break them down and apply them to your individual circumstances, that is where your mileage is going to vary on how much these things that I'm saying will apply to you in particular. Now, what I try and do with my videos and the content that I put out is I try really hard to come up with things that I know have either worked for me, they've worked for people that I've worked alongside, they tend to be useful, they're things that maybe aren't mentioned quite so much or are not encouraged in terms of practical application. So usually I try to fill my videos with things that are going to be sort of like, let's say it's a chocolate box. It's a chocolate box of different options, and what I'm hoping that people tend to get out of it is, first of all, comfort and encouragement. But second of all, something where there's going to be something that will like sort of strike into the heart of the person watching who needs the advice. So, you know, that it might not be that every single thing resonates, and that's absolutely not the intention of my videos. That's not the purpose of the videos that I make. I'm not trying to make every single thing resonate with everyone, and I'm not trying to make it into a perfect video for somebody's situation, a video where every single thing is a really strong point that can be taken, you know, in a practical way. I try to offer as many different caveats and as many different disclaimers as I can. As I mentioned, I feel like my language is kind of peppered with that stuff. You know, I feel like I regularly try to make the point that you've got to take this in accordance with your circumstances. You've got to filter it through the lens of your consciousness and apply it to your specific situation. Now, that is where I just can't go with people. And I know for the majority of you listening to this, I'm teaching you to suck eggs completely. And I know that you are aware that you have to do that part of the work yourself. But I sometimes fear from some of the comments that I receive and some of the private messages that I receive that there are some people who just are not understanding fully that that next step is a step that they've got to take. I can't go on that journey. And even when you do hire me for a spiritual counselling session where you can talk to me one-on-one about your specific circumstances, yes, okay, my advice, my suggestions, the things that I might say will become increasingly more connected to your situation and customized for your situation. But any activities that we agree on, any practical tasks that we decide at the end that you would like to go away and try, they are still ultimately your responsibility. You are the one that has made the decision that you're going to factor those things in. You might want to go away and think about them more after the session is over, or if we agree upon things that I'm going to keep you accountable to in the next session, it is still your responsibility if you employ one of these techniques or you start with one of these exercises to recognize if it's making you feel crappy or if it's not working or if it doesn't feel quite right. I cannot be there to hold your hand through that. You still have to come to this point where you're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to stop with this task because this is not helping. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I can't talk directly to you when I'm making a video. I'm not talking directly to you when I'm offering this buffet table of advice. When I am talking directly to you, you still have some measure of personal responsibility in that. I am not ever going to try to give you a hard and fast set of instructions which I expect you to carry out on the basis that I know more about what I'm talking about than you do, or on the basis that I am somehow, you know, higher up in the scheme of things. I don't believe that. I'm not trying to be. your guru. And by guru, I know guru essentially just means teacher, but I think we all know where the term guru can tend to go, okay? I'm not trying to be your messiah. I'm not trying to tell you that I understand the right way, or I have this formula that I've figured out, or, you know, I've been fed this information from higher beings that you don't have access to. That's not my bag, baby. And I understand that that is definitely the bag of some other people that one might deem to be spiritual teachers or speakers on spiritual topics, but it is not me. I do not believe that, and I can only pepper my language and my videos with, you know, a certain degree of disclaimers and caveats before it gets to be silly, and before really the individual has to understand that they have responsibility. They take the ultimate responsibility when it comes to whether or not to implement advice that I may have offered in my videos. And it's really about keeping yourself accountable to applying anything to your life only once you've figured out if it fits your circumstances. I want to read you guys a series of tweets that I wrote on Twitter, obviously, a little while ago, and it sparked a really interesting discussion. And so I just want to read these tweets to you, because this is kind of where the idea started for me to do a housework ramble, or some kind of video anyway, about this specific topic. It was on my mind and I just wanted to kind of get it off my chest. So a lot of the time with my Twitter account, that is where I will go to hash these kinds of things out. So let me just find it. Here we go. There's so many microfibers from these fucking clothes. They're all over my phone. I think it's actually one specific handmade cardigan that I picked up from like a vintage tabletop stall. And I think that's where all these microfibers are coming from. It's really frustrating me because I can see them all in my eyes. Okay, if you will indulge me for a couple of minutes, I will read you the tweets that I wrote. It says here, I do not intend for my advice to be swallowed unquestioningly. I do not intend for people to just take every single point I make as gospel. I do not want anyone to follow a step that I might suggest in a video without checking in and thinking, is this appropriate for me? It does scare me to think that someone would abandon their own intuition in order to follow something I may have suggested as being potentially helpful. It does scare me to think that someone wouldn't filter my advice through their lived experiences before applying it. There aren't enough caveats and disclaimers in the world to make sure that I'm being clear on this though. I might say something in a video and be referencing something specific in my head, but someone might apply the advice to their specific issues and end up feeling harmed. Do I stop giving advice completely? Make the disclaimers and warnings more obvious or severe, or simply recognise that there will always be a handful of people who take well-meaning advice to a dark place. This is a dialogue I'm having with myself right now. If you guys would like to read some of the replies that I received on various different tweets in that thread, I will leave the link to the original first tweet of the thread somewhere down below for you, in the links down below for you, so you can go and explore. So basically, essentially, what I was saying there was that I feel like I could give probably a disclaimer at the beginning of every single video, and I could give caveats with every single piece of advice I give, and I think there would still be, even then, a small cross-section of people who are thinking and feeling that I'm talking directly to them. And I remember a really long time ago, and this is going to ring a bell for anybody who was subscribed to my newsletter in, I think it was early October, because I did approach this and I did tell this story already in that video. So apologies to my newsletter peeps who've already heard this. But basically a long time ago, I made a video, it was years ago now, I made a video about friendship and about how sometimes when you start leveling up spiritually, when you start focusing on your self-development and all that kind of jazz, you do find that you start to grow apart from people who are not necessarily doing that same kind of work, or they're not focusing on that same kind of thing. And my sort of take on it at the time was sort of benevolent, essentially. It was like kind of saying, you know, we're not always in the same place. We do sometimes need to appreciate that we're at different stages on the journey of life, etc. And just go in peace, basically, and try to understand where the other person is coming from. Again, as with all of my videos, it's highly likely, I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but it's highly likely that there were a number of different pieces of advice here. There were a number of different things that I said, again, always in the hope that certain things are going to resonate with certain people, and I will leave the link to that video down below that I made. Anyway, I received a message on this, I received a private private message, so it wasn't a comment underneath the video. It was a private message, and when I received this private message, I think it was the very first time that I recognised that if I wanted to put out these guidance videos and helpful advice videos, I was going to come up against this kind of issue. So basically this person was just explaining to me why the video hurt their feelings, why it wasn't right for them and their situation. And they explained a little bit about their situation and what had happened with this friend of theirs that hadn't been very nice to them or who had fucked them over in some way. And you know, they were just basically saying your video just didn't resonate with me at all, because you have to appreciate that in this situation I was being really hard done by, or I was being really, you know, unfairly rejected, or whatever the wording was. It was a very long time ago. And I remember writing back to this person and I was just like, look, I'm sorry if the video upset you or made you feel some kind of way, but I'm not talking to you. You have to understand, surely, that I'm not actually specifically sitting down and putting together a video that is for you and is for your exact situation. You have to be able to appreciate that on some level. Reading a little bit about this person's situation, I definitely would have made a different kind of video for them. If I was really zooming in to their specific situation, then yeah, definitely I would have made a different kind of video for them, no doubt. A lot of the advice I was giving probably didn't apply to their specific situation, and that's completely okay. I'm going to throw this because it's a pillowcase, and my pillowcases go over there in my wicker basket. So it was kind of frustrating for them, and it was kind of frustrating for me. I feel like it needn't have been frustrating for them if they had stopped for a second and thought to themselves, is Kellyanne Maddox actually genuinely talking to me specifically in this situation? Is she actually trying to, in some way, upset me or tell me that I'm not doing the right thing or that I'm in the wrong? And the answer that they would have come to obviously would have been, no, she is not trying to directly attack me in any way. And maybe I'm taking it to a personal place when it doesn't need to be taken to that personal place. And essentially in my reply, what I said to this individual was, the video is clearly not for you. It's obviously not for you. It doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't gel with your situation. So you know what? Just go and be in peace. Don't take on that advice. It was almost as though the reply was a little loaded and a little irritated, as though the person was saying, like, you've overlooked my situation and you've overlooked my feelings and you've overlooked the circumstances that led to my bust up with this friend. And I was reading it and I was kind of thinking, well, I have overlooked all of that because I wasn't directly talking to you about your specific situation. It's a general video, and it'll either hit where it needs to hit or it won't. It'll either be a home run for you in the heart space and you'll get the feels and it will be useful, or it'll just not be. And maybe, you know, if it wasn't turning out to be that way for you after about 5 minutes, you should have clicked off, because I would have. It's always okay to click off, honey bunnies. Clicking off is what it's all about in this life. You've got to click off sometimes. In my recent video about shadow work, which was called 10 Shadow Work Pitfalls, I knew that I was possibly taking a little bit of a creative risk there, because I was being very specific about certain things that can be pitfalls in shadow work, and it was, let's say, quite high impact, quite intense content. I think it was intense for me to write the notes for it, and I know that it was intense for a lot of people watching it. Some people said it was incredibly helpful and it helped them to identify various different ways in which they were sabotaging their own progress with shadow work. Other people said that they felt like they could never do shadow work after watching it, so obviously it was supremely discouraging for some people, which is a shame. But a video like that is never going to hit the spot for everybody, right? This weather is fucking apocalyptic. It's so horrible. Ugh. Oh, I don't want to walk to the gym. Oh, why don't I drive? I'm having one of those why don't I drive moments. So in that shadow work video, the most recent one that I made, and I will leave it for you down below, I mentioned that one of the things that can happen when you do shadow work is that you make a realization about an issue that you have, or something that is shadowy for you, but you forget to practically apply it by putting yourself in a situation where you can, you know, make a different choice and see if the shadow has integrated. So this is just for an example. I'll give you an example, right? let's say that you have a very, very shadowy relationship with a particular family member, and you do have a relationship with that family member, but it is usually very fraught, it is usually very problematic, it usually ends with you feeling very stressed or very angry or very upset, and you tend to always feel like you come out on the losing end because your buttons are being pushed by that individual, right? That family member has got some kind of power over you, and they can tap into your shadow, unbeknownst to them or not, doesn't matter, and it makes you feel like crap. Now, let's say you do some shadow work that is relating to your relationship with that relation. Relate, right? Let's say you do some shadow work around your connection with that relation, and then you realise some things, or you kind of establish how your buttons are being pushed and what the problems are, but then you put off going to see them again. You don't answer their phone calls, you drop out of family arrangements because you don't want to be around them, you feel exhausted, you feel like you just don't want to go back into the battlefield, if you will. But you know, if you want to maintain a relationship with that relative, and it's only if you want to, if you don't want to, then that's another story. And I've got a video coming up on how to gracefully bow out of relationships with family members that you do not want to be connected to anymore. But if you want to maintain a relationship with that individual in your family, obviously you're going to have to go back onto the battlefield, you're going to have to don your armour, and you're going to have to use the things that you've established in your shadow work, and you're going to have to apply them, right? Now, that was the kind of thing that I meant when I said that sometimes we establish something in our shadow work, but we avoid doing the work of actually practically applying it in some way. You know, it may be a particular fear that we have, an irrational fear that we have, and we shadow work it, we realise some things about the origin of it, but then instead of actually making a move to get in touch with that fear, to tackle it in some way, to put it back in our line of sight, we avoid because we're still afraid, right? And my point was that sometimes we have to do the work to put ourselves in a situation where we can really establish whether or not the things that we've realised in our shadow work have been effectual, and whether or not we are making different choices and integrating those shadows, right? Now, somebody wrote underneath in the comments that it would be very unwise for somebody with PTSD to put themselves back in the path of one of the things that triggers them, or to go back to something that is so intimately connected to the trauma that they originally experienced. And in the same comment, this person said that an abuser should never put themselves back in the path of the person who abused them. That would be incredibly unhealthy. Yes, obviously those things. I mean, Christ on a banana, guys. Yes, obviously, if you've got fucking PTSD and you're like, this is what I mean. It's like, my advice can only be general, and sometimes when I'm talking, I've got a specific thing in my head that seems perfectly reasonable and perfectly rational, but I may not completely explain it all. I might not go into the fine, you know, weave of it, because otherwise I'd literally be there all day. It would be a 5-hour, 6-hour, 7-hour video, right? So sometimes the advice that I give, you've got to take it, well, all of the time, you've got to take it and you've got to put it through your filter. I was not in any way suggesting at all in any world that someone who's been fucking abused should go into a room with their abuser and chat one out. That was not at all what I was even remotely suggesting. And yet obviously it's scary for me, because this is sometimes what people take from what I say. This is sometimes what people may feel I'm inferring from what I'm putting across, and that does freak me out. It does make me feel like sometimes, every so often, it makes me feel like I should just fucking shut up shop and not do this anymore, because it just really does alarm me sometimes. And I suppose in a way it's almost like I shouldn't ever expect that somebody should just know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I think is a good idea and what I don't. I should never just expect that you guys all know me well enough by now to know that there are some situations, obviously, where I would say you should not put yourself in the path of what is shadowy for you, obviously. I think I kind of sometimes take liberties, maybe, because I think that I've made that many videos by now and I've put out so much stuff by now that everybody and everyone who interacts with my stuff is going to know what I mean when I say certain things. And obviously, you know what, that's not true. People are not always going to know what I mean when I say certain things. People are not always going to have a sense of what the limitations of my advice are, and I shouldn't assume that, I guess. But what I will say is that I will never be able to put the kind of caveat in front of my work that is going to be needed for everybody. I'm never going to be able to have a situation where every single thing I say has a caveat on it to ensure that nobody ends up putting themselves in harm's way. People need to take individual responsibility for what they take on, and anything that you find in the realm of personal development, spirituality, any of that stuff, any advice that you find, any inspiring messages, or people that are seeking to offer guidance and offer help, any of that stuff is going to have its limitations, and it is intended for you to first of all filter it through your consciousness and apply it to your circumstances and think, is this appropriate for me? It does scare me. It does scare me, the thought that somebody would potentially be watching my video and they would think to themselves, oh, so I need to get in touch with my parent that abused me, that I've, intentionally left behind and don't speak to anymore because it's not healthy for me. But Kellyanne Maddox is saying that I'm just running away from, my shadow work, so I need to definitely, go and meet my abuser for coffee. What? No, that is nowhere near what I was trying to say. Fucking hell, no. I cannot tell you shit about anything to do with that. The video is intended to be a selection of things to inspire, to trigger thought, to really help you to motivate yourself to do whatever work you need to do. Do I know the nature of the bits and pieces of your personal work? No, I absolutely do not. And I would never want anyone to come away from a video thinking that I'm attempting to be instructional, prescriptive, insistent in any way. And I think that, when you connect with somebody's work online, when you get something from the advice that they're giving or the inspiration that they're attempting to offer, I would definitely recommend listening to the language that they're using. And if you go back through my videos, I guarantee that you're going to find plenty of caveats, plenty of reminders that you have to go your own way. You have to figure out whether or not this advice is right for you. It's not something that you should just take without thinking, okay, can I apply this to myself or not? I liberally pepper my videos with mentions of everything's different for different people, and you might not be in a situation where this applies. Think about whether or not it's going to be suitable for you. And to be honest with you, beyond that, it is definitely the individual's responsibility to, let's say, enjoy my videos responsibly. Drink responsibly, people. I mean, to me, it's so hard because I understand what my intentions are and I understand where my head is when I say certain things. But obviously, there's always going to be something lost in translation from one human being to the next, just as there is something that is lost in translation when we actually translate something from one language to another. It's not going to be the same exact nuances and inferences. It's not going to be the exact same thing as in the original language, right? And I know that, and I know that I feel very much called to create work in spite of that issue. And it is an issue, believe me, because if I could just telepathically communicate everything to you guys so that there would be no nuances lost and no miscommunication, at this point I would probably do that. I would probably choose to do that. It would probably make me quite lazy language wise. But I feel like I would do it on the basis that I don't like the idea of being in danger of being misunderstood. And I'm an ENTP, so I really fucking hate being misunderstood. ENTPs are these weird people who love to be unique and different and hate being copied, but they also hate being misunderstood. So it's like, don't try and be like me, but you better understand what I'm like. It's just it's always going to be, we're always going to be on the losing end with that stuff. Oh my God, I love this dress. I can't even remember where I got this from, but it's so beautiful. I love it. Sometimes I find myself questioning what my responsibility is, and how much responsibility I can really take over what anybody does with any of my videos, really. And it's definitely something that's played on my mind, and I've gone through cycles with it, as I think most people who probably put out advice videos do. And, you know, certainly it has come into my mind as well that I give a lot of my advice just from the heart space and from my personal experiences of being a survivor of mental health issues, being a survivor of a very complicated, difficult and at times painful childhood, being a survivor of family estrangement, being a survivor of various things. I was a self-harmer, I had an eating disorder, all that jazz. So I talk a lot of the time from that place of personal experience and just learning how to rise from the ashes and just learning how to grow up like a rose through the concrete slabs, right? And so I'm aware that I do not have a degree, and I've never said that I have a degree or anything of that nature. I also have come across people online who do have degrees and master's degrees, and they're not giving me anything that speaks to me. There are other people I've come across online who don't have any official qualifications, not even a diploma, but they're just speaking very much from the heart, and they are giving me magic. So it really does depend, right? There's horses for courses. There are a lot of things that somebody who's incredibly educated academically is not going to be able to speak to in the same way as someone who's just tapping in to what they have genuinely been through and the hell that they've managed to emerge from, right? So it really does depend what you want, and I would definitely say that anyone should sort of appreciate a number of different resources and not just appreciate only one. I would never want to be the only thing that someone's listening to or interacting with. You know, I would never want my content to be the only content that someone is using to get them through anything. I think it's great to establish a number of different resources that you are using, and you know, also to make sure that if you need to talk to somebody one-on-one as well as reading books or watching videos, which is more of a generalized type of advice, then you're doing that if you have the ability to do that. This is a very important t-shirt. Please just give a moment for this t-shirt. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, black brogues were a thing and a half. They came back in a major fucking way. Should I keep these ones? I don't know. Who knows? One of the replies that I received on Twitter when I wrote this thread was sort of pointing towards people leaving some sort of religious framework where there is an established dogma and moving towards like spiritual advice or self-development advice where there is not actually an established dogma. But if you've come out from under the umbrella of a system where the advice that is being given is prescriptive, it is insistent, and it is dogmatic, then you might move towards the videos of somebody like me, and you might still want to take on that stuff as though it is a dogma, as though you are supposed to do it. And I thought that was a really good point, very well made. The fact that sometimes if somebody's been churned through that kind of machine, they're going to see any advice that comes along that they're searching for as dogmatic advice, as advice which they're being told to take, that they're being told is the one right way. And that ain't me, baby. I am not the one. I just don't want to give that kind of advice. I never have. I do not want people to blindly follow me. I do not want people to give me all their fucking savings and move with me down to Guyana so I can talk to you all through a megaphone and eventually make you all sip the fucking Kool-Aid. I do not want to say things like, it is this way, and when this happens you will experience this, and this is why, and da 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 da. I don't want my sentence structure to be remotely like that. Like, so I'm very careful. I feel like I'm very careful with the way that I put things across, because I want to create an environment where you are just being advised to lean into these various things that I have to say that have come from my own experience, or things that I've read, or things that I have established as I've been doing my spiritual counselling, which I do have a diploma for, things that I've come across in my lifetime, right, or in my reading. I read widely. I'm really interested in this stuff. I feel very compelled to help. I feel very moved to help where I can, right? So, you know, I really try to create within the language that I use this sense that you are not being told to do anything. You are not being advised that anything is the one right way. And that is definitely not what I'm trying to convey. It's not what I'm trying to put across whatsoever. I'm trying to pair socks if anyone's wondering what's going on here. So, you know, essentially it can be difficult, because I know that even with the best will in the world, as my mother would say, I'm still going to have experiences where I feel like somebody has taken something I've said in a very, they've taken it to heart, or they feel some difficult things about it, but actually what they're doing is they're taking it as something that I'm supposed to have told them specifically to do as an individual, and I have not. I cannot take any responsibility for that. That is what somebody else has projected over it. That is what that person as an individual has suggested that I might have been saying, or that I might want people to do. And it's not like that at all. I can't speak to any one person when I'm making these videos, which are intended for a few thousand people. Maybe some of this housework ramble is about the dangers of taking things just way too literally, so that you are literally feeling as though I'm sat right in front of you and I'm telling you to do something really destructive, like go and talk to your abuser, or go and do something that's going to trigger the bejesus out of you when you've got PTSD. And I feel when I get comments like that I'm being so grossly misunderstood. I would never tell anyone to do anything like that. I would never advise that in a one-on-one setting with somebody. I would never sit there and be like, hey, you know, the way to break through this is to put yourself in harm's way, and just kind of like kiss the cross and leap out and hope that angels will catch you. For fuck's sake, that's not what I would ever say, guys. And again, I know that it's just a really small cross-section of people that would ever take my advice the wrong way, and I know that if I want to continue to make videos where I'm offering guidance or I'm trying to be of service, I'm going to have to acknowledge that not everyone is gonna take it in a positive way, and I can't take responsibility for that. I mean, I do totally understand that when somebody comes in my comment section and they say something like, oh, you said in your video that you need to sort of put yourself in the path of whatever it is that is in shadow. Well, people with PTSD or who've been abused shouldn't do that, really. I do understand that they might not necessarily be thinking that I'm saying that. Maybe they're commenting for other people, so that other people understand that they shouldn't do that, or that they shouldn't feel that my video is telling them to do that. I don't know. But the way that it feels for me, obviously, as the creator of the content, is that I'm being really misunderstood, and that people, that somebody with PTSD would come along and think, oh, well, I'm going to go contrary to everything that I've read or everything that my therapist has told me, and I'm going to put myself directly in harm's way, even though it does not feel remotely like the right thing to do, because Kellyanne Maddox said I should do it. And in the immortal words of my mother, if somebody told you to go jump off a fucking cliff, would you do it? Ask yourself that question. You know, I really just wanted to, I guess, have a bit of a vent and put across my point of view on this. I have emptied my bag, my clothing bag. I'm so happy. It's totally empty. Oh no, wait a minute, there's one sock in there. Bloody typical. There are people around in the self-development community, in the psycho-spiritual realm, etc., in the realm of spiritual guidance, who are using the kind of language that strongly infers, if not sometimes explicitly states, that they know the way, that their path has been delivered to them through some kind of higher guidance that no one else quite has their hands on, that they have a portal through which they can obtain knowledge and understanding that you better fucking follow, because you don't have access to it yourself. That has never been what I'm selling. That has never been the stuff that I'm putting across. That is not in any world what I want you to believe about me. I am just a human being, and I just happen to have these particular interests. I feel very strongly moved to speak on topics like mental and emotional well-being, spiritual development, spiritual sovereignty, really just owning your power, being yourself, healing. And a lot of the reason that I feel moved to speak on these things is just because I've been through 7 shades of shit myself, and I came back brighter. And for some people, that creates a feeling of wanting to pay it forward and wanting to reach out and hold somebody else's hand in the void. And it's not everybody that comes to that point, but I'm one of those that did come to that point where I almost couldn't ignore anymore this calling that I had to just put love and advice out there to spark somebody else's motivation to get better, to help somebody understand that they really can see every new minute as a new opportunity to make a different choice, or, you know, really embrace themselves. And so I feel very strongly called to do this work and to put across these kinds of messages, and I therefore don't think there's a chance that I'm going to stop. But part of what this particular Housework Ramble has been about is, I guess, letting you guys know that I have come to a point on my journey where I have let go effectively of a lot of the worry that I have around somebody maybe misusing these videos as a very prescriptive, insistent tool, thinking of them as the one right way, the last word, the kind of God-inspired honey drip of a guru who's telling you what to do and you should just pick it up and run with it. Like, don't do that. I am just literally one of you. I am a fellow fucking traveller, and I really do want to feel as though I can put resources out and know that everybody that's going to listen to them is going to be like, okay, is this right for my situation? Is this right for where I am? Kellyanne does not know where I am. She might not necessarily be speaking so directly to me. You know what? This resource doesn't resonate. You know what? This is not actually speaking to me because my situation is different to what she's actually talking about, and I can't apply it. Like, that is my dream for how people would watch my videos. I do not have any fantasy in my head whatsoever. There's not a cell in my body that wants people to watch my videos and think, oh my god, I can't wait to apply all of this stuff unquestioningly because she is so goddess-like and so enlightened. No, I don't want that. And there are definitely some people who do want that, for sure. That's how we end up with cults and stuff. But I'm just not that way. I'm not that way inclined. I would rather that you listen to a video and think, this has got nothing in it for me because I'm in this place that she's not speaking to, and don't take that advice then. Don't utilize those techniques. I think that by the end of a video that anybody watches from me, my desire would be that they just feel, you know, invigorated, energized, thinking about things a bit differently, maybe feeling open to looking for solutions where before they might have felt shut down to those solutions. That's what I would really like. That's the idea that I have in mind that I love. And that I hope is what's happening for the majority of people. I do want to thank anyone who's left a comment where they're like, oh, you know, people with this condition shouldn't do this, or when you said this, you didn't clarify that people like this shouldn't do this. Like, obviously, okay, if you're attempting to put a warning out there or a reminder out there for others, then I think that's great, and I'm not trying to say you shouldn't leave comments like that, but please don't think that I am trying to say that I'm the last word in what somebody should do when they've been abused, or I know the truth about what anyone should do if they've got PTSD, or I think everybody with this problem should do this right now. I would never say that. I think everybody needs to filter stuff through their own consciousness, and even if it's not obvious to you, that I would never try and tell somebody something like go and have a coffee date with your abuser or whatever. Even if it's not obvious to you that I would never say that, I would hope that it's at least obvious to yourself that if that feels wrong, you should not fucking do it. You should not fucking do it. And if anything in a video that I've, you know, said has made you think, oh, maybe I'm not doing it right, maybe I should stop protecting myself and put myself in the path of the dragon, please stop and think to yourself, is that appropriate for me? Please also stop and think, is that what Kellyanne Maddox is literally telling me to do about my personal situation? And the answer is no, because I do not have personal knowledge of your situation, for one. And two, even if I did, anything that we would talk about or brainstorm or discuss the possibility of would only be a suggestion. It's just a buffet table. You get to decide what works for you and what's right for you. I really hope that I've made that clear. I have loved getting this off my fucking chest. I really hope nobody takes this the wrong way and feels like it's a telling off, because as I said at the beginning, I do feel like, you know, people understand as a general rule that advice videos are not catered to the individual. And even when you do receive advice that's catered to your individual needs, you still need to sign off. You are still the one that signs off, right? So I do feel like the majority of people do understand that. I think sometimes it's harder to understand that with certain videos or books or resources than others, because you might feel like a lot of the resource does speak to you very directly, and it really is about you and your situation. So if you come across something within a book or a video or a course that doesn't feel right for you, you might find it very difficult to own that and say, oh, this bit isn't right for me, this bit isn't really, you know, Shangri-La for me. But please do, you know, step away and filter things through your own lens, through your own perspective, and in accordance with your own circumstances. And if you feel like you can't do that and you're being dragged along and swept away into advice which ultimately just isn't right for you, stop with that resource. Don't imbibe things from that person anymore. Recognize that you are surrendering power to that person or to that concept or to that belief structure, and you need to claw your power back and repatriate it to self. This has been a housework ramble. I really hope that at least some of you guys have gotten some of your housework done. Please do let me know what you guys have been getting on with, what you've managed to accomplish. I've got all these piles of folded up clothes around me now, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm going to go and put them away. I've got plenty of drawer space and wardrobe space, so this is going to be nice. I'm going to repatriate all of my clothes back to my drawers, like I suggest you repatriate your power back to you. Before I go, I know that at least one person is probably going to ask me what I'm wearing on my eyes. All of this stuff is from Vegan Cosmetics Quest, guys. So I've got like some dark blue in the outer eye, and then a little bit of a shimmery blue in the inner corners and then underneath. I love Vegan Cosmetics Quest. The eyeshadows are so pigmented, so delicious, so lovely. I'll leave the link down below. Non-spawn, I just know somebody's probably going to ask me because this is quite a dramatic look. Okay, so much love until next time, kittens, and I cannot wait to read the comments on this. Again, I'm sorry if I came across a little bit, how do you say, salty. I was not trying to. I was trying to keep it light and I was trying to keep it upbeat. But at the same time, you know, this is something that does come up on and off, and is something that I have thought about at great length for the entire time I've been putting stuff out on the interwebs. And I just want to take this opportunity as a way to really clarify in depth that I don't feel like anyone should just be taking my lead and just putting all of their own analysis aside. Like, oh, don't explore what you're going through. Don't question my advice. Just take my advice. Like, absolutely do not do that. Absolutely do not fucking do that. My videos are intended to just be comforting, inspiring, encouraging. They're supposed to open you up to maybe different things that you hadn't thought about on a situation. And I intentionally cover quite a wide range of different suggestions or points of view on a topic, because I want as many people as possible to get something from it. I'm nowhere near intending for everybody to get everything from it. I don't want you to get your whole fucking life from one of my videos. I want you to give yourself your life. I want you to give yourself the wisdom, and some of that wisdom is whether or not to sign off on something that I or any other content creator or writer is telling you, and only you can know that. And so I need to absolve myself of any responsibility that I might feel it comes back to me as the result of somebody taking my words as gospel. I need to recognize that if I want to keep making these videos, there are going to be some people who are potentially going to think that I'm trying to tell them to do something that I would never in a million years tell them to do. And I think at the same time, people that watch my videos need to understand I totally support you filtering things through your own lens and applying it to you as and where necessary. And not only that, but may I insist upon you doing that, because you're your own fucking person and nobody understands more about your journey than you do, okay? So please just take that, sit with it if you need to. Or you can just put down in the comments like, yeah, okay, Kellyanne, that was an hour of teaching us to suck eggs, but whatever, I got my washing up done, so there is that. Much love, guys, blessed be. Oh, and don't pay attention to this cup. I am not the queen of fucking everything, okay? Don't pay attention to this. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.